Well, this is certainly an exciting day. I'm having a good time so far, and glad to hear everyone's speeches. And let's give a hand to everybody who spoke so far. So I'm looking forward to that. And now let's talk about the future. Okay, who gets excited about the future? All right, good. We got some people interested in it. Anybody remember this set of movies? Sure. Back to the Future. What a lot of fun that was. The first movie came out in 1985. The part 2 and part 3 came out in 88 and 89. And what an interesting travel that was through, through time and space. I mean, despite the fact they took the worst car in history, the ugly-looking DeLorean that was unreliable, made a time machine out of it. The theme was, or the premise of the story was, they would travel back and forth in a 60-year span. Now, half of that 60-year span we pretty much knew about because it was the past. So the other half of it, they had to use their imagination and think up what's going to happen 30 years into the future, which is now our past, which is 2015. So the way they put everything together made it look credible because you mixed elements of the past that people know about and elements of the present that people know about, and you mix elements of the future all intertwined, and it kind of thinks, okay, well, yeah, this all makes sense because it's all put together. By the time you get to the end of the series, you have such a whirlwind of different flights back and forth to the present and past. You wind up with gadgets, futuristic gadgets that were created in the past. Like that train, that nuclear atomic train that was flying, that was made back in the 1800s. So, if you remember that part of it. But anyway, thinking about the past or thinking about the future, I think is limited to just a few generations. I think the late part of the baby boomers, and I think the early Gen Xers, but I think millennials don't really think too much about the future. And I think the people before the baby boomers don't think too much about the future. And I could be wrong on that, but here's what I'm basing that on. Do you remember when you were a kid? Now this may have just been my family, but do you remember when you were a kid and your parents got together with their friends and relatives? What would they talk about at parties? The good old days, right? The past, when they were growing up, things that they did, how much, the cars looked so much nicer. The people were so much more polite, or at least they thought so. Things were so much easier. Life was less complicated in their past, right? They didn't talk too much about the future. So my parents would get together with relatives, and their aunts and uncles and cousins at these parties at some uncle's house, and they would drink and talk about the past, and they'd eat and talk more about the past, and eat some more, and drink some more, and talk about the past, and reminisce, and just have a good time. And as years went by, of course, the family got together less and less. The older generation passed away, and we didn't have that anymore. And I kind of miss that, I kind of look at those old days. I kind of like those old days when we used to get together as a family. And now I'm talking like my parents, looking back at the past. But looking at the future, you notice a lot of people when they talk about the future. When we look into the future, what are some of the things that we look at? Well, the first things we look at, the first things we talk about, the first things you see on videos and on films are the gadgets that are going to make our life easier. The kitchens of the future that will have all this stuff that will be, instant heating and cooling and all the stuff. Back in the 50s after World War II, they had all this new kitchen stuff as a way of life. Some of this stuff came true, and some of this stuff, like I said, just looked just plain silly. The cars, of course, the cars are going to be futuristic. They're going to have fins, they're going to fly, they're going to do all kinds of crazy stuff. We're going to have a shorter 30-day work week. We're going to be living a life of leisure, that was the thought of the future. But there's some other things we think about too now when we talk about the future. We think about the way, what's going to happen with our political situation, what's going to happen with our economy, what's going to happen with our health care. So it's not always about convenience and the positive things. There is some fear about what's going to happen further down the road. We think about our ecology, what's going to happen to our planet and what's going to happen to our society if we don't make any changes. There was this big talk about global warming, and for years we've heard about global warming, and we were educated about global warming. Well, then years later, people came out and said, oh, that's a bunch of bunk. The earth just recycles itself. That's never going to happen. Don't listen to that. That's all panic. So you got these two sides that are like fighting each other, But here's my perspective on it. When I was growing up, we had 4 seasons. We had spring, which was kind of cool, and we had rainy season. We had summer, which could get really hot. We had fall, which was, starting to get chilly, and the leaves would turn. And winter, where it was outright cold. Today, what do we have? We have hot and cold days all over the place. It's cold in the spring, it's warm in the fall and the winter. I mean, yesterday I was in a short sleeve shirt. Hell yeah. It's just you can't predict. You don't put the seasonal clothes away, get the others out, you just keep it all out in the closet. So my advice is, or my thoughts on predicting the future, looking at the past, is this. And I've said this in previous speech, but I'll reiterate it so you can remember. The past is gone. We've lived it already. We've learned from it. We can basically use that as a learning experience. We can't change it. The future, we don't know about it. We can't change it. Well, we can prepare for it and be ready for it, whatever comes out. But the present is where we're living. So enjoy every day and every moment that we have in the present. So grab a hold of that and run with that. And in the meantime, I'm going to see you guys at the next meeting. I'm going to make sure I wear my name tag, because with things changing so much, I might lose 10 pounds, grow a beard, and go totally gray. You won't recognize me. So I'll see you guys sometime in the future.